Do you still stick by the principle of a second referendum?
I do, but it's not a second referendum. It'll be a first referendum on Mrs May's treaty. When people voted 2 years ago, they had no idea what the Brexit terms would be, and they couldn't, because, of course, they hadn't even been negotiated.
Except when they voted, that leaflet, which went through everybody's doors, says, as a government, we will implement what you vote for.
But people, of course, couldn't vote for a deal because there wasn't a deal.
But it didn't say that in the leaflet. It didn't say, and then when the deal comes along, we'll have a second referendum.
They didn't know whether we were going to be in the customs union, the single market, what the arrangements were going to be for immigration. All these things are hugely important. And, of course, the Prime Minister is negotiating those at the moment. When she's negotiated them, they should obviously go to the people who should have the final say.
Lord Howard, look, I was a Remain voter, but I completely accept that Leave won. And it does stick in my gullet a bit, frankly, that this whole thing about, well, it's not really a second referendum, it's the first one on the deal. Because to me, that was never on the table. David Cameron made it crystal clear, repeatedly, if we make this decision, that is it. It wasn't like in 2 years, we'll have another little vote, and if you don't like it, actually, we'll pretend it never happened.
As usual, Piers, you are 100%
Thank you, Lord Howard.
This is a
of course you're right. And it's what Andrew says just isn't right. During the referendum debate, it was made clear, for example, that we were leaving the single market. Boris Johnson said so. Michael Gove said so, and George Osborne, on the other side of the argument, said so. If you vote no, if you vote to leave, we will leave the single market. So none of this is
Hang on a moment. Can I just say, right,
that's not
firstly, I take issue with Lord Adonis because I think that when people voted, they knew this was the only vote,
yes.
OK?
Yeah.
But you would be the first to criticise all the apocalyptic predictions of people like George Osborne.
Yes.
So you can't have it that they got it wrong on that, but they absolutely got it right on we were leaving the customs union, the single market, because the fact of the matter is, actually, everybody told lies and obfuscated and muddied the water. But you can't have it, can you? On one point they were being honest and clear, on another point they were lying and muddying the waters.
This wasn't a sort of economic forecast. The great American economist John Galbraith once said, economic forecasts were invented to give astrology a good name. So economic forecasts are always wrong. But this wasn't an economic forecast. This was, what are we voting for? And we are voting to leave the single market in particular. That's part of leaving the European Union.
That's not correct, because the Conservative Party's own manifesto for the 2015 election said that we would stay in the single market even if we left the European Union.
Yeah, but that was
it's perfectly possible to do that.
That was not how the referendum debate was framed.
People did not have a clear view of what the end would be, and they couldn't.
I'm sorry, but that is very disingenuous. That is not how the referendum campaign was waged. So yes, that may well have been the case.
Some people
read manifesto.
I know maybe only Michael read manifesto.
Literally, nobody outside Westminster ever reads manifesto. You know that, and I know.
Hold on, Piers. A manifesto is supposed to be a contract between the people and their governments.
But things moved on. Things moved on from there. And there was a debate about the referendum, and in that debate, I think that the negotiations were always going to be difficult, and there were always going to be bumps along the way. I think we are going to get what we want, which is a bespoke deal. We're going to have a good deal with the European Union, and we're going to have that, if for no other reason, we're going to have it because they want our money. They're not going to get our money unless we get a good deal.
I agree with that, but is it going to end up being what people understood Brexit to be?
Yes, no, I think it is. We're going to leave the single market, we're going to leave the customs union, we're going to have a good trading agreement with the European Union in their interests as well as in ours.
And yet all these impact assessments which have been leaked to BuzzFeed suggest that whatever deal we have, we see a shrinking economy.
These forecasts, we've heard them before, they're always pessimistic and they're always wrong.
Every prediction in the referendum turned out to be nonsense.
Michael says we should have a bespoke deal. Yeah. We have a bespoke deal. We have a brilliant deal in the European Union. And indeed, we have been able to pick and choose what we want to be. We're not in the euro. We're not in other aspects of the European Union we don't like.
You do realise we've left the European Union, right?
We do have the full benefits of membership of the single market, the customs union, on which millions of jobs depend. The bespoke deal is the current deal, and we should stay in it.
Let me explain something to you, because I don't think it's quite got through. we had a referendum on this and we voted to leave. You're talking in a slightly deluded fashion, if you don't mind me saying, as if somehow we're still part of the European Union.
You put all these arguments in the referendum debate and you lost.
Piers, you've just been interviewing President Trump, so you're an expert in delusion. But that isn't the position of the British public. The position of the British public is they want to see what the deal is. They couldn't know what the deal was 2 years ago because it hadn't been negotiated.
No,
we have a brilliant...
That's not the position of the British
This is the position of Lord Adonis.
And we should stay in.
This is the position of Lord Adonis. And I admire you for sticking to your own deluded guns, but...